Many thanks to Heng there. We're just talking about how we'd love to go and visit Singapore when those kinds of travel opportunities are back available and possible to us. Welcome back to the World Skills UK International Skills Summit. We're coming to you live from Dudley College of Technology in the heart of the Black Country in the West Midlands. It's great to hear from those of you who are watching at home or in the office or wherever indeed we find you this morning. And if you want to ask a question, you can place your question through the facility that you're watching this programme on, and just tell us who you are and the organisation or the college or wherever you're from, so we know a little bit about you, and just place your question and we'll put it to the panel and we'll try and get some answers, because all of this is about debate and plotting a course out of where we are and on the road to recovery with skills for growth at its heart, because as we were saying earlier on, it is skills that will make us on that road and get us out from the position we find ourselves in, which brings us to our next session, and it links very neatly on from our discussion we were just having with Guantek Heng a few moments ago, because this is about the lessons that we here in the UK can learn from other countries. Yes, we're brilliant in worldwide competition. We're always top 10, 19 medallions and medals taken from the Kazan 2019 event. Very proud. The press in the country picked up on that hugely during that period, but we still have things to learn. The greatest of us all have things to learn, and I'm delighted to say that in this session we're joined by Ben Blackledge, who's Deputy CEO of World Skills UK, who joins us in the studio. Morning, Ben, welcome.
Morning, thank you.
It's good to see you. Nice to see you too. David Gallagher is back with us, who's Chief Executive of NCFE. Dr. Susan James Relly is Director of Scope Oxford University. Nazreen Mani is Executive Director of the Global Apprenticeship Network, and also Nicolas Jomard is Director of Communication for World Skills France. And I'm seeing every face on the screen, which is brilliant. So thank you to all of you for joining us live this morning. Before we get into this, I'm just going to go around the panel and just ask you what I hope is it's a very short question. Whether it's a simple question will be up to you. I'm going to start with Ben, which will give David and Susan and Nazreen and Nicola a little bit of time to think. Ben, what country do we have the most to learn from, do you think?
I mean, that's a difficult question. And I think I would say Singapore, but as we've already heard from them, and also I would say France, because our colleagues are on the call, because I think there's amazing things to learn from there. But I think if we look at places like Korea and Taiwan, the investment they're putting into skills and how they're using the World Skills movement to really drive up quality and to profile excellence in TVET, I think is something that we are learning from and we need to continue to learn from.
Thank you for that. And if I can put the same question to you, David, Chief Executive of the NCFE, the country you think we have the most to learn from?
So I'm going to use sponsors' prerogative, if that's all right, Sam, and not actually answer that question by saying, I think we've got excellence already in the UK. It exists in the UK, it exists in England, and to my mind, absolutely, we shouldn't be ever, so arrogant as to not think we can learn from other countries. But where we've got excellence, we just need to find it, harness it, and make it available to everyone. So I think we need to look more within at where excellence exists, capture it and share it.
All right, many thanks for that. Dr. Susan James Relly, we've had the answer that we're not going to answer the question, so you can't have that one too. Which country do you think we have the most to learn from?
I take David's points on board, but I don't think there is one particular country. I think in the UK we have such a multi-level and nuanced skill system that there are different elements from different countries that we can learn from. So I'm going to maybe dodge the question, but say I think we can learn many things from many different countries who are spotlighting excellence in different ways.
All right, many thanks for that. Nazreen, same question to you. Nazreen Mani, who's Executive Director of the Global Apprenticeship Network.
So I'm based in Switzerland and I'm going to be neutral here, but I think Susan's quite right. As the GAD, we have networks in 16 different countries. We have partnerships with many other countries, and there are pockets of excellence in every one. And I think the underlying identifying factor we've picked up is that every country needs help in some part of the system. And I must compliment the elements of the UK system that we as GAN profile and highlight, such as how employers have engaged with the levy system. So I think every one of us has something to learn from the other. And in fact, GAN has a process of peer-to-peer learning that we pride ourselves on sharing the good practice from each of our networks. And I think if we can take that approach, we'll do well.
Many thanks for that. And just lastly on this from you, Nicolas Jomard, Director of Communication from WorldSkills France. I've always found France to be a very diplomatic country. I went to France about 15, 20 years ago, and they were celebrating what I think must have been 50 years of the jumbo jet. And the gentleman from France I was interviewing said to me, he said, of all the countries, I admire the UK the most. And I said afterwards, I said, did you mean that? He said, no, but I thought it was the best thing for me to say at that point. So anyway, I'm going to ask you the same question. Which country do we have the most to learn from when it comes to skills, do you think?
Again, I'm going to try and not disappoint you, but I think the comments which have been made prior are very fair. I think each specifics in terms of pursuing excellence and vocational training in each country are very different. I think what we should all aim in these efforts by the UK or in that direction is how we can give a collective worldwide force around the subject. And I think that's what WorldSkills International and each member countries in terms of promotional skills are trying to achieve, the collective aspect of this education.
All right, many thanks for that. So we've got Ben, David, Susan and Nazreen and Nicola who are represented from many parts of the education economy and also obviously in just not this country but also elsewhere too. Ben, if we can just concentrate on some of the issues that we're raising here, and one of those things is why it is important to share international best practice, because there may be an opinion which says if you've got a good secret, like in any industrial firm, keep it to yourself. But actually, that isn't where strength comes from, is it?
No, I agree, and I think I completely agree with all the colleagues on the call that there is amazing quality in the UK and there is real excellence in the UK. But I think in the same way that if you look at research communities, if you look at the knowledge economy that Neil was talking about, there's a phenomenal strength in kind of international collaboration. And I think the benefit of having multiple collaborations is you can not pick and choose, but you can have an array of different strengths from different countries and look at how do we then take that and adapt it for what can work in the UK. And so I think the fact that we have strength and we have excellence isn't a reason not to share best practice, but is a reason that actually we can learn but also teach. And I think that is where you get real strong partnerships between us and other countries.
And David, can we talk a little bit about the teaching and the passing on of those skills? Because one of the main issues that we have as a human society is that we grow, we develop, we get educated, and then we start in business. And we have to do that for every generation. And it's seemingly we have to do it quicker, faster, speedier, and the demands on that education change almost daily. How do we fix that to make sure that we're doing that well? Because if we don't start off with the good seed, we're never going to get the good plant.
Yeah, and that's a huge question, Simon. So a few quick things I will say on that is that there's a phrase I find myself using often, which is we simply cannot have world-class education without world-class educators. So we've got to invest in the latent potential that's there within our frontline workforce within education to help our educators to be the very best they can be. One of the recent stats I looked at suggested that most educators in formal education in the UK spend 60% of their time on planning and marking. Now, whilst that's hugely important for education, what about inspiring, engaging, helping to build confidence, self-awareness, self-efficacy, and of course the technical skills that are hugely important? So the one thing that I would say that we've got to really think hard about is how we equip and enable our educators to do what they did, what they came into education to do, which is to help their learners to achieve, to get to mastery, to get to world class and beyond. Because I firmly believe, having met thousands of educators in my career, that is what the vast majority of educators are here to do. We've just got to equip them and enable them better, and that requires investment.
Well, Dr. Susan James-Relly, you're surrounded by educators, and I think we're all, I'm not going to ask you this question, and I'm just looking at the faces on the panel. If you thought back to your school days and thought about an educator that really inspired you, I bet you've got an image in your mind. Dr. Susan James-Relly, can those inspiring educators be trained to be inspiring, or do we have to find inspiring people?
I think if we have inspiring people as role models, that's absolutely fantastic. But we all have passion within us, and that's what you will find in anyone who chooses, I think, to go into the teaching profession, is that they have that within themselves, and we just need to find mechanisms in which we can help those people find that. We're just finishing a report for World Skills UK, and one of the big things that has come out from it is allowing teachers and trainers and educators to have that third space, to have that time and ability to just think about what it is they want to do in the classroom with their skills, how they can draw it out in their students. As David was saying, we've got so much time spent on tick box assessment. Let's just let teachers be teachers and do what they do best.
Nazreen, from the Global Apprenticeship Network, we heard earlier on from Gillian Keegan, the Undersecretary for Skills and Apprentices, on the programme earlier on. And apprenticeships are so important, and I have been inspired by some of the companies that I've met and the apprenticeships that they offer, but they're not available everywhere.
No, and I think that's part of the challenge around building and growing partnerships with the private sector. I think what we've seen in our membership over the last 18 months is that employers are really keen to engage. They really want to bring innovation to training. But what's been exciting is also mapping out different forms of apprenticeships. So, we have the very traditional models. They exist in Switzerland, in Germany, in the UK, and many other countries. Excitingly, we're also seeing employers take up apprenticeships in different fields, in the technology fields, for example, shortening the length of training time, trying to make it accessible to more people. Part of our challenge we've picked up as the GAN has been the whole idea of resistance in communities, the perception of apprenticeships as being a second-class qualification, the drive for many families to have at least one generation having gone through university. And I think the role of the private sector is really to demonstrate the efficiency of a program through an apprenticeship program, the career development opportunities, and really that it's a decent livelihood. It's one that can grow through passion. I think the point that Susan made about teachers being passionate, it cuts across all kinds of training, all kinds of work-based learning opportunities. And I think as our members, GAN members, are driving advocacy around apprenticeships, working with governments to try and build and shape suitable policy, and really to get this out to as many people as possible, young and old. And I think that's the other thing. It's not just entry-level jobs. It's not just for young people. Anyone can be an apprentice and take up an apprenticeship at any phase in their career.
And Nicolas, from WorldSkills France, what's interesting, what I've seen from WorldSkills UK, when I've seen Team UK in international competition, as I'm sure you have done for Team France, is that there are such inspiring leaders of the various disciplines that go out with the team. They're with them through the period before international competition. They're inspiring them whilst they're wherever they may be competing. And tell me about some of the inspiring leaders that you have leading your team when they internationally compete, because that is not just in education, but also in worldwide competition, vitally important, isn't it?
Yes, it's vitally important in two ways. It's two ways in terms of inciting to come towards these competitions. And we've noticed in France that the majority of the youth who subscribe to the competition come from their teachers, from the people who guide them for their careers. So we have a very territorial approach in terms of experts and who follow our youth. But the most important what we have is it's a combination of the senior officials who have this experience and then the youth coming up. But mostly what's interesting is the actual exemplarity aspect of these competitors and how they're leveraged and used as an inciting tool towards the new generations. That is what we're really working on in terms of relevance in France, in WorldSkills France, that the competition itself is used as a tool on the ground for the promotion. That is the key thing. And obviously the human aspect is and the richness of the quality of the people who are in the movements around the world in the WorldSkills movements are the key prescriptors of that.
Thank you for that. And Ben, who's in the studio, Ben Blackledge, Deputy CEO of WorldSkills UK. I mean, one of the things I'm getting from all of our panel, you included, that everybody is very clear about the journey ahead, about what is required, what makes success, where countries are doing it well, what their own country has in its heart as the development of their own successes, and that we have the potential and the capacity to do it. So arguably, of course, this Skills Summit is important and good to do, but we're actually in a very, very good place.
I think we are, and I think what we are seeing from conversations with the sector in the UK is that there is a real latent demand for this. And I think there is a real desire for looking at excellence as well as competence. And so I think for a long time we've trained to competence in the UK, and I think what events like World Skills and competitions, but a host of other kind of ways of inspiring young people and educators, is that actually there is an ability to reach and to look for things that excite and inspire, and look for really celebrating the quality that we have in the UK. And so I think what we have to do is, it's going to be a collective effort, and so we're working really closely with NCFE on our World Skills UK Centre of Excellence, which is all around, yes, improving the level of teaching in colleges and training providers, but also about investing in those educators and saying, actually, we think your development and your quality and you being excited about what you do is really important, developing those skills that employers are going to want. And so I think we are in a good place, but we are in a place where we need to keep pushing forward, and we're at a kind of tipping point in that respect.
And Dudley College of Technology, where we are here this morning and indeed all day, are part of that Centre of Excellence, and they've been talking, where I've been to some of the sites, with great passion and excitement about that. So Ben, thank you for that. We have some questions coming through. I'm trying to think, I'll take the specific one first. This is a question that's come in for Nazreen from Adrian Kirov, who says, how are you engaging employers in different countries, and wonders whether representative business organisations are doing enough to spread the word about the benefits of apprenticeships. Nazreen, who's from, as we were saying earlier on, from the Global Apprenticeship Network.
Thank you. And an important question. So we work both with employer organizations, but employer organizations are key. They cut across big and small business in countries. They have reach on the policy discussions. They work with public sector partners. So we do work with the formal employer organizations. Equally important is working with private sector companies. I think what we've been able to see is that our large multinational companies are able to bring resources, they're able to bring innovation, but also because of their focus on ESG, the whole environment, social governance aspect that's now coming into business discussions, there's a real commitment to growing skills development, to working with communities, to enhancing the skills base, the primary pipeline of skills coming into organizations. So we've worked with our members, we've worked with our policy partners such as the International Labour Organization, the OECD, the European Union, the African Union. So getting these big decision makers into engagement, working not just on policy, but also on practical solutions, testing, implementing. And I think that's been important. And then a lot of advocacy, creating awareness, showing the commitment of companies, and then getting mentors in place. So getting business leaders who've been apprentices to talk about their journey, getting young people who are in starting careers, having come through the apprenticeship training programs, and really driving this awareness has been critical. But ultimately, reaching out to individual employers is key. Building the momentum and building participation has been an important aspect of our work.
Nazreen, thank you for that. And we have more questions. We've got some questions for all the panel coming up. I want to put some of my own questions before we get there, though. If I can just revert back to David for a brief period. David Gallagher, Chief Executive of the NCFE. One of the things we have been discussing, David, is the technical and vocational education. And it's obviously of crucial importance, again, as we were saying, just getting things right at the beginning. How does our system match up with the technical and vocational education system in other countries?
So a couple of comments I will make on this. The first comment, I suppose, is that we're quite a fragmented system, and that is why World Skills UK taking forward this task force can be such a fantastic galvanising platform for a fragmented system. And, we've got primary and secondary, we've got higher, we've got tertiary, which is a real broad range of adult community learning, technical learning, apprenticeships. It's a real broad basket. And policy and funding and institutions are fragmented. And I think that presents a huge challenge in terms of making sure that we align our resources align our collective intelligence to deliver this, this aspiration that we've got. So I would say the fragmentation of the system is one of the challenges that I see when we look at other countries, and that needs to improve dramatically. The second comment I would make is about agility and responsiveness. I think we all know, and we've certainly learned this in the last year, that the world is changing rapidly. The labour market is changing faster than ever, and that pace of change will continue to speed up. And how do we therefore make sure that our qualifications, our teaching and learning content, and most importantly, our educators and our facilities for delivering world-class education where they need to be? So how do we create a much more agile and responsive system, particularly given what I said first, which is we are currently quite fragmented? But I keep coming back to, if through the task force and if through World Skills UK, we can get that alignment, we can leverage our resources and our collective intelligence more efficiently, more effectively, we've got a real chance of rapidly improving our system.
And thank you for that. And Dr. Susan James Reddy, Director, Scope, Oxford University. One of the things we all think of sometimes when we think about Oxbridge and other of the great red brick universities is a fantastic historical legacy, but an organisation across the country that's had to modernise and actually vastly change during the pandemic, of course, as well, but has been modernising for many years. How do you think those who haven't been to, for example, Oxford University for 20, 30, 40 years, what would they not recognise when they come back?
Oh, that's an interesting question. What would they not recognize? Well, the fact that Oxford University is doing a huge amount of research, not only with World Skills, but with further education colleges, with other organisations, employers, to actually understand better what technical and vocational education and training excellence looks like. The university has a research centre that's devoted to understanding more about skills, knowledge and organisational performance. So I think that's one of the things that people might not recognise. We are engaging with employers a lot in terms of our research. And I would really just like to see that move forward, that we do more research so that we can make the UK skills development system the best in the world, that we are the ones that people come to and say, how are you doing this? What makes it tick? What makes it work best? How can we learn from this?
Thank you for that. Now, I've got a question from the audience, and I'm going to allow any of you to pick this up. It may be a question slightly too close to something I asked earlier on that you didn't quite enjoy, but this is from Linda Urquhart, who says, oh, by the way, I have to say, by the power of the facility that I have to see all of you at all times, I want to say bless you to Nazarene, who had a little sneeze during that, but we didn't hear or see you at home, so don't worry. Linda Urquhart says, are there any countries which stand out as beacons of good practice in this area of skills excellence? And if so, how do they tackle the challenge of matching supply to demand? Actually, that could be about skills. You can, if you want to pick it up being about skills excellence or indeed about apprenticeships, you can do, because it's not specific, and I'm not exactly sure when Linda sent it. So this is to any of you. Shout in.
I'm happy to start. Oh, go on, Nicola. You
go on, Nicola.
I'll launch the debate. I think it comes down to what we were saying earlier on about the particularities of each countries and where they're actually plugged in to the education system in terms of vocational training in the country. In France, we were talking. You were talking about it earlier on about the initial perception between classical education and going to university, A levels, GCSEs, and then the vocational training being perceived as a B route. Obviously, the major challenge is to change that perception. So countries like Switzerland, Germany, definitely plugged directly into the educational system. The perception of the skills is very positive. So I think it comes down to what is the ambition and the objectives of movements like World Skills in terms of exemplarity and excellence, to in actual fact participate, to go beyond the natural ecosystem of the skills world, and to try and get the message out there to bring it more positive and to change that perception. So again, it's a B2B question in terms of working with the educational system of the country, and then it's a B2C issue in terms of messaging and inciting.
Ben, do you want to pick that up?
Yeah, just quickly to say, I think one thing I'd say is that nobody's got this right. And I think if you spoke to any of the countries, they'd say this is a thing they're struggling with, regardless of how advanced they were. I'd agree with Nicola in terms of the countries he's mentioned who do this well. I would come back to Singapore again and listen to Heng speaking earlier about how they're setting qualifications, so how they're having employers at the heart of that, how they're looking at have a really forward look on skills. And so as a proxy, looking at where they compete in world skills, it is very digital, it is very technology, it is very forward looking in that respect. And that's not right necessarily for us in the UK. We have a broader kind of gamut of skills that we need to excel in. But I do think that there are some examples in that respect that are doing things well. But I would say that we shouldn't beat ourselves too up about this, because actually there are issues in every country, and the work that Susan's doing with us at the moment, looking at case studies of how countries are put together, I think is going to really help us shine some more light on that as well.
Fingers on the buzzers, anyone can shout in on this one. How can we better align our skills policy with future economic goals, specifically in respect to maximising inward investment? So inward investment is something we've been speaking about a lot because it's important for every country, particularly when we're in a state of flux as we are. Who wants to have a go at that one? No one's buzzing in.
I'm happy to.
Thank you very much indeed, Nasreen Mani, Executive Director of the Global Apprenticeship Network.
So I think one of the biggest opportunities that COVID's given us is this close alignment between the business sector and our education sectors. So, bringing in business into these discussions when policy is being reviewed. I think David mentioned the agility of the system. Really building a system that can respond rapidly to changes is something that we have to do. Policymakers in most countries inherently don't have that approach, but business does. Many businesses, I hope, can respond quickly, can respond effectively. So how can we bring the closer ties between the private sector and the public sector? How can we understand and map out demand, labor market needs, and then ensure that that's built into the education practices and policies are key. And if we want TVET to be responsive, if we want TVET to be the sector that's able to fill in future workforce supply and development issues or respond to future supply and development issues, I think building these closer ties with the private sector and inviting the private sector into policy development is key.
Many thanks for that. And Ben, I guess you would concur with much of that.
Yeah, completely. I think having employers at the heart of that and at the heart of the FE sector, and I think Dudley College is actually a really good example of that, and the IoT that's being opened up down the road has employers at the heart of kind of what's going to be delivered there. I think the only thing I'd add is we need to shout about how good we are. If we're going to maximise foreign direct investment, then things like World Skills, and obviously I would say that, but things like World Skills, putting our skills on an international platform and looking at how great they are, both in terms of the young people but the educators that got them there, is only going to help in terms of raising our profile internationally to help attract that direct investment.
So how do we do that? Because James Kirkup, who we're speaking to earlier on, his if criticism is the right word, his observation, let's call it that, was that the media and the government are not necessarily engaging and understanding enough, and therefore not allowing that message to go out there. What do you think needs to be done?
I mean, I think from our point of view, there are, I guess, a couple of things. So I think this year we have had to look at, obviously, with the COVID situation, how do we do what we do differently? So we at World Skills UK obviously are kind of some of what we do is at the kind of sharp end of the spear. So it's the top and the elite that go. But actually, what we're working at now is how does that then filter down into the whole sector? And so again, working with partners like NCFE and others, how does that become something that's embedded? And then how do we shout about that as a good news story? I think there is a real hunger for good news stories at the moment, and I think investing in young people, investing in skills, investing in colleges, which are at the heart of a lot of communities, is a different angle in terms of that. But at the heart of all of that has got to be, how is this going to support the economy? How is this going to help businesses? How is this going to help the UK have the skills it needs for the future? And so I don't think any of that is hugely new, but I think it's the right direction. And I think we need to keep doing that and keep working together to make sure that we can amplify that message.
Ben, thanks very much indeed. Ben Blackledge, Deputy CEO of World Skills UK. I'm going to come back to you very briefly at the end, but meanwhile, can I thank you, David Gallagher, Chief Executive of NCFE. If we want to find out more about you, David, and NCFE, how can we do it?
Quite simply, look on the website. So it's just ncfe.co.uk. We're an educational charity involved in all sorts of things to do with education, awarding, learning resources and content. So really easy to look us up online or through social media.
Okay, thank you for that, Dr. Susan James-Relly. Thank you also, Director of Scope, Oxford University. Again, if we want to find out more about your organisation and what you're achieving, how can we do that?
Similar to David, we're on the web, scope with a K, skope.ox.ac.uk. Our reports that we've been working on with World Skills are available through the World Skills UK website, and a simple Google search will find us.
Okay, many thanks. Nazreen Mani, Executive Director, Global Apprenticeship Network. Many thanks to you for joining us live as well. Give us a contact detail for you and your organisation.
Thank you so much. gan-global.org. Google search will also show us up. So anyone's welcome to reach out, and some interesting stuff on our website about what the private sector is doing to push TVET and work-based learning in this space. Thank you. Thank
you. And similarly, thank you to you, Nicolas Jomard, Director of Communication for World Skills France. I think I know how to contact you because I know about. I'll contact Ben. Say, can you get in touch with Nicolas? But for those who don't, how can we find out more about how you're developing skills in France?
That's true. I'm going to have to start giving a retainer fee to Skills UK. They're very good at the problem. No, same thing. Obviously, as the director of comms, I'm going to say our digital channels of World Skills France, but we have a unique opportunity in front of us in 2024 where we're going to have the World Skills competition in Lyon. So hopefully we'll be out of this sanitary situation by then. So I encourage you all to come to France and discover what World Skills France does in terms of competitions. Thank you all again for including us.
Thank you. And I don't know if you can if we can keep Nicolas large screen for just 1 second. I don't know if you can see in the bottom left of his screen. Can we keep Nicolas large screen? In the bottom left, we can just see his international sockets. And I cannot wait to find my international converter and use it once again. It's made me very excited. But just seeing that, hasn't that made you excited about travel again? Thank you very much to all of our panel, and thank you for joining us for this session, Lessons in Skills Excellence from Other Countries. And thank you to Ben Blackledge, Deputy CEO of World Skills UK as well. It's good to see you, and we'll hear from you, I know, a bit later on in the day. That is it. We're going to have a break for lunch in a few moments' time, but before that, I want to tell you what's coming up in session 4, just after lunch. We're going to be discussing delivering higher technical skills to power our advanced manufacturing sector. And amongst our guests for that discussion will be Neil Thomas, Chief Executive and Principal of Dudley College of Technology, who are kindly hosting our event here in Dudley today. Sarah Dunder, who's Head of Strategic Partnerships for Ingenuity, and Barry Lyles, OBE, Pro Vice Chancellor of the University of Wales, Trinity St David. But until then, thank you for your observations and your attention. Thank you for the questions that are coming through. Please keep those coming, and we'll see you at about 1:15. Have a good lunch.